And today the dummy is Joey. And we're just waiting on you guys, really. Waiting on the questions. All right, let's go. You guys got to ask questions, okay? Where are we getting stuck? It's a Q&A. All right. How do you isolate an arm or create an opening for a submission if your opponent is not trying to escape and crossing their arms to protect their neck? Oh, that's an annoying one. No one likes that one. This specifically applies to either sub only or if you're down in points in a match and must finish. That is true. Like that, those situations do happen under those two circumstances. So I'm going to give you guys some ideas on what to do with that person. I hate that person, by the way. A lot of times I just walk away and just leave that person on the mats because they clearly don't want to train. If you're showing up to the gym to survive, you don't want to train. All right, that's not your thing. You're just trying to. You don't want to hurt your ego by losing. In a competition, I can see that making sense in terms of submission only. It makes technical sense to do that, which is why I don't like it. And in terms of someone who's ahead on points, it makes strategical sense to do that, even though I also don't like it. All right, so I don't like that mindset, period. But, they have that mentality, whereas if I don't tap, I won, so lay down. So what can I get to get Joey moving, right? So side control just down a little bit. Right here. Okay. So what can I get? Joey's just like crossing his arms across his neck. He's just not giving me much to work with, right? A lot of times they're doing this right here. So I'm going to show you one of my favorite submissions from here. It's like whenever he's framing my neck. Joey's actually doing it correctly. He knows better. You can see his wrist is kind of deep and his hand is touching my trap. That's exactly how you frame. The good news is most people actually do this right here. So they're either placing the hand on the trap, right, or on the shoulder, sometimes on the chest, which is like a death sentence. You'd be surprised on how many people do this, even like high level. We'll get to mount in a sec. We'll start with side control. We can get to mount, right? So what we're going to do is I'm going to bite the back of the wrist, and at the same time, I create a frame here for the elbow. So my elbow's got to be on his hip, and my hand pushes his elbow away. It forms like a triangle here, right, between his lat, my arm, and his arm. At the same time I bite, I'm going to go like this. So it's all happening at the same time, and then I'm just going to roll my shoulder in, right? It's a quick wrist lock. Even if you're a little further out, I can still get it. I just got to look in. And I catch him with that wrist lock, right? But sometimes his arm is in position. There's no wrist lock there. But he's still just doing he's just defensive, right? He doesn't want to move. One of the things I like to do from here is I'll grab the trap. In the gi, I'll grab the collar. No gi, I'll just grab the trap, and I'll just lean. I'll plink on my forearm. So two things are going to happen. He's going to tap, right, which is not the most common thing because it's not particularly difficult to defend this. But if he doesn't tap, he's going to have to move. So if I get this guy right here, right, and he begins to move, okay, well, I solved my problem, right? The problem was him not moving. And you ask me, Robert, what if it's mountain? Well, it's the same idea. So if I'm here, I think on my forearm, and it's very tricky to learn how to shift your weight because you're thinking pushing. Everyone thinks pushing. But if I push, no matter how strong my push is, it's only the weight of my arm. I have to learn how to shift my body weight on that forearm. So right now, there's no weight on my knees. You can't feel it. Joey can feel it. It's not always enough to choke, but it's always enough to get him to move. It's always enough to create something. So what I do is I plank on my forearm. That's what yes. Let it start moving, and now I can start looking for stuff, right? I can start looking for his hand, like the wrist lock here. I can start forcing him on his side. I can start looking for the head and arm. So just by attacking the neck in a very uncomfortable way, normally their arms move. Because the problem is that they have their arms very low. You can't armbar them, right? If the arm bars are very high, he can defend his neck, but he can't really defend the arms. Sometimes he's in limbo, so I have to force a reaction, right? I'll get my arm in there. I'll lean. Yes, I'll even try to choke here, like a modified Ezekiel Nogi. It's like a rear naked choke from the front. And then I don't always get the submission, but I always get the reaction, right? So if you're having problems getting them to move, leaning on the neck is a great way to get them to move. But I'm not going to lie to you. This is annoying. It does work. I don't teach it because if you're, I always think of jiu-jitsu as a form of a martial art. And in a fight, if you did this, you get elbowed in the head repeatedly. There's a reason why people don't do it in the UFC, right? So from a martial art perspective, this right here is useless. This is just I want to survive because I want to win a tournament, which sometimes makes sense. Or I just got a big ego and I don't want to tap on the mats. The bad kind of ego, at least, right? People just don't want to get tapped on the mats. All right. What else? You guys got to bombard me with questions here. You guys know everything. This is the easiest group of people to teach. There are no questions. All right, now they're coming. I usually get my hooks in last when I take the back. I don't have a problem getting the back and choking the neck, but they always seem to wiggle out before I can get to finish. Any advice? It's a very good question. One of the most common mistakes people make when attacking the back is that they focus a lot on the seatbelt and they forget about the hooks. It's an equally grave mistake to focus on the hooks and not the seatbelt. So when do you go for one and the other? And the answer to that question is depends on where you are, right? So when I'm in turtle position, right? When I'm in turtle position, what happens is what I'm normally trying to do is I'm normally trying to step. The problem with stepping foot first, I don't want to get my knee on the ground. Here's the upside. I'm in perfect position, right? I'm not falling off. I can sit here. I can attack the back from here. It's a very good spot. And then in May, I can punch. In jiu-jitsu, I'm perfectly well positioned. The truth of the matter, however, is getting that foot in there is not always easy, right? If it's wide open, I always step. Normally, I have to create something, right, to get him to move. Like I have to get him off balance. So one thing I like to do is I'll grab his hip on the far side. I'll block the knee. I'll just pull his butt to the ground. It doesn't always put him on his butt, but always get a reaction out of it. So one of his common reactions, he opens up his knee to find his balance. I open up your knee. Like, yeah, exactly. Now I can't put him on his hip, but now what? Now I can step. So I can create that reaction. Go back. Let's say I did put him on his butt, but he keeps his elbow on the ground. So in this case, I start fighting for his wrist. Once I get on his wrist, I'm much closer to his back. But if you notice, I have my knees on the ground. I don't put my butt on the ground. That's the mistake that a lot of you guys make, is that you guys put your butt on the ground too soon. You guys go here, go here. And this I'm a critic of. I don't like my butt on the ground unless I have at least one hook. Why is that? And this is where I think your question's at. If I go like this and I pull Joey on top, so they can see, and I don't have a hook, this is not difficult for Joey to defend. If I have double unhooks, even easier. In fact, Joey's very comfortable there because it's easy for him to block the neck and the hooks, right? If I have a seatbelt, I have the same problem. I'll be a little bit closer to the neck. But the most common thing to happen here is Joey just turns to his knees on the other side. The most common thing for me to do here is this right here, right? I climb up, I get high, and I end up in guard. If I had to rank, the most common mistake when attacking the back, it's that one right there, is getting too high when attacking the back. And that's one of the reasons why I don't like to put my butt on the ground without a hook. If I'm going to drag Joey to the ground, right? I mean, just even before we get to that, right? Like after I get a hook, my favorite way of getting Joey on the ground is with a power half. Power half is king, right? Back of the hand on the back of his neck. I get this guy, it's all over, right? I can guarantee to get him on the ground on my terms, right? So that's one option. The problem is when I can't get that first hook in. In the gi, I have some other options. No gi, a little more limited. And in MMA, I can start hand fighting him here, and he's guys concerned with what? With the punches. So when he starts really trying to free his arms here, a lot of times that frees up room for what? For the hook. So it's actually a lot easier to get the hook in MMA. But in no-gi, when they're just defending here and just staying small, it can be a pain in the butt, right? So one option here, and this is will be the sacrificial option. It's not my first option, but it's a very good option, is when I do go seatbelt, I do sneak my right knee in there. I'll show you guys a trick. So when you lift your head up there, Joey, when I put my shin there, I try not to put my shin on my weight on the ground. I try to keep my weight on Joey's leg. This gives me a little more support, right? I'm like planking on that shin. It hurts him a little bit. By itself, it's not going to do much, but it gives me a little more support as I go down, and I can always recover if I want to. Notice that I lace his leg down with my left leg. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull his leg out as I kick my right leg in. And now I can get that hook in. So even if Joey's got really good balance, I'm forcing him to come down with me. All right, so one more time. So once I go in here, 1, 2, I step with that outside hook, and I bring that knee in with my left foot is to facilitate my right leg. So by bringing his leg in with the left foot, I'm able to get the hook with the right, and here I'm on the back. It's very important here that I keep this sort of control. Don't get too relaxed in the upper body. You don't want him sitting up. You want to open him up, right? So when you're attacking someone's back, there's also a movement there of almost like a deadlift. Like you have to drive your hips in. Problem people have the backs, they focus on hooks and the neck. They forget that the whole body is working. You should be driving your belly and your hip into your opponent's lower back the whole time you're attacking the back. It makes it harder for him to defend the hooks and harder for him to defend the neck, okay? But as I said, as generally speaking, I don't like my butt on the ground without a hook. I think it's a bad idea. All right. Next one. At what belt level do you believe you make the most progress? Why does the amount of time in a belt vary so much between facilities? It's very arbitrary. There's no universal rule for when someone should get promoted, and what the criteria is vary from gym to gym. So there's that. The one you make most progress is without a doubt white belt, because you know nothing. So when you know nothing, everything is a lesson. When you become a black belt, it's harder to learn because you're more familiar with the lessons. You know, it's harder. There's less challenges in the gym. As you move up the ladder, you're not as challenged, and when you're not challenged, you're not really learning a whole bunch. So that's why white belts always learn faster. But to answer your question about the belt, I won't even think about it. It's just a symbol. It's very overrated. You know, it's like buying something you really, really want, and then you have, and it's like, oh, it's not as cool as I thought it was going to be. You know, so don't focus on that. Just focus on having fun. And a lot of schools are very hard on belts, and a lot of them are very easy. I would rather err on the harder side, in the sense where, you know, try not to give belts out too quickly. You know, of course, I don't expect everyone to be an athlete. You know, I've been criticized for both, too fast and too slow. You know, I go based on the person's potential too. You know, you get like a 55-year-old mom, you know, there's no point of holding her back on getting promoted. You know, and then you get the 22-year-old who's got potential to be a world champion. Why are you in a hurry to promote him? You can't compare the 22-year-old without a life to the 55-year-old mom. They're very different students with very different ambitions. So I don't apply the same standard. I'm normally as harder on the younger one, even though they might be able to beat everyone at the gym. The expectation for them is a lot higher, so the standard has to be higher as well. Okay? All right. Can you show us your most successful guard pass for no-gi? Yes. I got something on my mind. It's easy. All right, so most successful guard pass. So right here, butterfly. There's a few. Probably the one I use the most is from butterfly. I put my toes on the ground here, guys. So I don't have, my knees are on the ground, but I'm never going to keep a whole bunch of my weight on my knees. My weight's going to go on Joey immediately. So the weight shift is one of the most important lessons you'll ever learn in jiu-jitsu. I frame his hip here. It's not going to slide, don't worry, because most of my weight's not going to go on my hand. It's actually going on my elbow. My hand is just a reference point. So a lot of times when I teach this, people think it's going to slide, but I'm doing that right there to the other side, right? But my weight actually goes on the inside of my elbow. I'm attempting to open up that leg as I do this. And I move my weight off my knee, so my weight goes on my head and arms. So think of a plank, all right? Look at my left hand on the outside of the knee. So Joey, get stiff there, get hard, exactly. And I'm here, look, I lift. All right, that's number one. Very common thing to happen there is obviously Joey resists, and he doesn't want to let me clear the leg so easily. So a very common thing for him to do there is for him to stay very rigid, like exactly, I can't turn him. So maybe even hooks that leg right there. This is very common too, and then I can't just easily pass to my left, which is always my first option. In this case, I switch direction, but I bring the knee with me. So the weight shift is going to go from here. Look at my left knee. I bring my left knee in on an angle. It's very important you don't open your knee too much. You're going to grab your foot, and you don't want to push his leg forward. So I have to step right here on an angle. So when I get in here, and I switch from the lower back, and I drive that knee across. Let me turn so you guys will see where I'm at. So once I'm in here, okay, it's very important that I keep that foot hidden. A lot of people lift that foot in. That's normally when they get leg locked. Go back. I keep my foot hidden. And Joey's still going to try. You see guys trying to attack the leg even from that position. If you react in time, they're not going to be able to. But normally from here, if I win this head fight, I don't have the problem. If you really want to be safe, you go double underhooks. With double underhooks in this right here, I have all the options in the world. Straight to mount is a option. It's not the only one. I can always knee slice from there as well if you just want to keep it simple. Do it one more time. So assuming the first one didn't work, right? The first one is this right here. You see, notice that I didn't turn, he turned. That's very important, okay? So it's less about shuffling my feet. It's more about getting him to move. When I meet resistance, I step with the left, and I get in there. Okay, so go back, further back. Tight, tight, tight. Drive my foot across. I like the double underhook here, so just turn. Enjoy. Yeah. So I always like the double underhook here, just in case he tries to get underneath me. 1, 2, connect my hands. I step up high so he doesn't put me in half guard. I win the head fight. and I go straight to mount here. Depending on what you want to do. You might want side control. You know, there are ways of getting the back there as well, depending on your opponent's reaction. The key word here is pressure and weight distribution. Learn how to distribute your weight. Learn how to shift your weight. Do worry about your leg, depending on your opponent, right? Some people are very skilled at getting underneath you there, so you got to be careful. Which rule set best prepares you for self-defense? Sub only or Abu Dhabi? Definitely Abu Dhabi. Even IBJJF is closer to real fight. I'll tell you why. In a real fight, you have to fight for position. It's that simple. Watch the UFC. You're going to see more TKOs than submissions probably, and there's a reason for that. Good position is important. The second you're not worried about top position, this is one reason why wrestlers have done so well historically in MMA, because wrestling is very simple. Wrestlers focus basically on one thing. Get on top, stay on top. Right? That's it. That's their only thing. Get on top and stay on top. That's what they're good at. They scramble, they fight for position. They're good at getting you down and holding you down. Simple as that is, it's a very important equation in MMA. And the problem with the submission only is that they got rid of that. Don't take my word for it. Watch it. You see less and less wrestling because strategically it doesn't make sense to wrestle, to blow your load on something that doesn't even, you're not even going to score points, right? So people not fighting for position is a problem. If someone's doing a lot of work to pass your guard, it makes strategic sense to lay flat on your back and do this and let them pass and wait for them to make a mistake so you can recover, right? And just fight for the feet, fight for quick submissions, surprise submissions, or we go to overtime where you start in an arm bar, you start on the back. So there's a reason why people who only compete submission only, if you pay attention to how they train, it's exactly how they train. They never go to turtle, which is one reason why you never see back takes in submission only. You very rarely see them because why would you turtle up? Why would you try to stand back up? It makes no tactical sense to try to stand back up or recover guard by going to your knees or just not letting them pass by going to your knees. So as a result, the back take, which is the most common position submission in or path to submission in ADCC, for example, you barely see it in submission only. That's because in ADCC, people turtle up not to have points scored on them, right? So the point adds an element of realism. You never think you would say that, right? On top of that, submissions are not a great idea in a fight. I'm going to give some advice. Submission is a great idea in a fight if it's only you two and no one else is around. Chances are the person you're fighting has friends, has family. Submission, again, put them in an arm bar is not a great idea in a bar or in a nightclub where most fights take place anyway. So I would keep that in mind. Jiu-jitsu is a very efficient form of self-defense, 1-versus-1, but most situations are not always fighting by yourself. So you got to keep that in mind. I would rather be in position to hit and run than to actually be on someone's back choking them, unless I were very confident that there were no one else involved in the situation. No one's going to intervene. Okay, you gotta keep that in mind. I think self-defense is a very dangerous category, and there's a lot of nonsense out there. Best form of self-defense is track and field. Never forget that. Okay. All right. Should children take no-gi or should children focus on gi? You should do both. I've always been an advocate of both. I never seen a good reason why you should train only one. I think that most gyms will focus on gi for children. It's more traditional. Parents perhaps are more comfortable with it. I've always trained both. I've always taught both. My classes in my gym are about 70-30, 70 gi, 30 no gi. And that's because most people prefer it. It's more of like me assimilating the market, right? Just the market prefers the gi. But I make an effort to get all my beginners to train the gi, no gi at least once a week. I think a lot of the problems come from someone only trains no gi. It's very difficult for them to take their gi off, And then when they're only doing gi, they don't only doing no gi. They don't want to put the gi on. So it's a matter of like when you first start training, if you do too long the same thing, you don't want to be a beginner again and get your butt kicked. And that's the real problem. It's just a matter of like going from being an expert to not being an expert. You're really good at this. And then you put your gi on and you go back to square one, which you're not staying there for very long. If you're a no-gi grappler, you pick up gi very quickly and vice versa. It's just a matter of, time. But to answer your question, always both. All right. Chris has got a question. What is something you think about jiu-jitsu that you think few people would agree with you on? Well, everything. It's about everything I say. Be more specific, Chris. All right. Okay, Eddie Charles got a question in Portuguese. I'm going to try to translate. So Eddie Charles got a question. See if I understood it. When he's going for that pass, like a very common thing is for Joey to just like stiff arm my head. Now, anytime you're getting stiff arm and you can't pass, just move down. So anytime you're getting stiff arm here, like if you can't beat the stiff arm, there are a few things you can do, like go stiff arm. Anytime, right? One of them is just trying to get underneath it, right? So when he's pushing, like whether he's pushing, try to go past it. Sometimes just like, trying to get past it that way will do the job. But if he's got a very good stiff arm, a lot of times, best thing to do is try to circle around them. So instead of trying to beat the arm, if you can't beat him, they just move him myself. And he has to move. He's either going to expose his arm or he has to move. So anytime you encounter a barrier that you can't beat with pressure, all right, that's when you start moving your feet. And you got to redirect that pressure. So the pressure stays, but I'm redirecting. So as I redirect it, I'm either going to pass, right, or he's going to have to move, and I'm going to have to look for something else, a different situation, different position. But he's forced to move because he can't keep that stiff arm forever, right? Stiff arm, generally speaking, is very strong here. The second you go that way or out there, it's not so efficient anymore. So just by shuffling my feet around him, I create a lot of opportunities. It's not a particular technique, but it's more of a concept, right? If you get stuck somewhere and it's pushing really hard, you want to shuffle your feet and a transition to a lot of knee on belly, not as a form of control, but as a transition to a better position, okay? This is why, like, little guys, when they're passing heavyweights guard, they move around so much because they know they can't beat them with pressure. So they try to outposition them by being very active about their footwork and their pass, okay? So something that approach to an instruction more specifically. Let me see here. I think that one thing that a lot of jiu-jitsu schools do wrong, in my opinion, is that there is a hyper focus on like the wrong kind of drilling. That's one thing. I'm like talking about something that I believe that is a little controversial. For me, I always like to compare jiu-jitsu to an argument, right? It's an argument. So there's a push-pull kind of a confrontation, right? I do this, you do that. We're fighting, right? It's an argument. For you not to argue back, I think it's good practice if you're just getting started, right? You get to practice a new one. There's no resistance, there's no feedback. That makes sense if you're just getting started. But sometimes I see world champions going for like basic passes and there's no resistance for the person on bottom. Like my favorite example is the one they just shuffle their feet around. I don't see that working in a fight. Like I see this one all the time. I think it's a waste of energy, personally. This one right here. So if Joe is in my guard, when I'm passing Joey's guard, you see guys do this right here. And then I'm working my leg drag. And I'm thinking, I have never, 20 years of jiu-jitsu, I've ever seen anyone pass anyone's guard like that, right? Now, you're warming yourself up, kind of like jogging. There's a benefit there, but you're not making your pass better. If you want to work your leg drag, you have to ask Joey to give you like 30, 40% resistance. You have to make it somewhat realistic, with a little bit of a fight. And if I get some feedback from him, then I can actually practice and with realism, right? Because I need the feedback from you to really understand the move. Wrestlers drill like this. I like that. I think that the no resistance kind of drilling is only meaningful when you're a beginner. At some point, it's just kind of, you're just wasting your time and energy. You need the feedback, right? You need that resistance in order to improve on the move, okay? What else in terms of methodology? I believe there's a psychological element that is probably the key equation for everything. I try to talk about it, but I find that most people don't care about it. They don't think it's important, or they acknowledge it, it's important, but they don't see that they actually have to work on it to get better, right? So people talk about like, oh, I know that mind is the most important thing. Like, oh, but are you working on it? And they don't know how to work on it. So I try to talk about that. Like I always talk about the importance of visualization and of dreaming. You have to dream jiu-jitsu. You have to think about it a lot. You get better at things that you think about a lot. You become more aware, right, of all the situations that are likely to occur. And that actually improves on you, whether you realize it or not. Just spending a lot of time thinking about it is a huge help. Makes you confident too, because you keep doing it in your head over and over. So that's one thing I talk about. Another thing I talk about that's not very common is, for people that want to be successful in grappling, is surround yourself with the right people. Your social circle is very important. Now, you would think that your social circle has no effect in how you perform on the mats and in competition, but it does. It's one of the most underrated aspects of combat is who are you around? Everything from your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, your parents, your friends. you have to be around people that are living that life, like they live the jiu-jitsu life, because they want the same things that you want. Now, here's the other thing. Just because they want the same things you want doesn't mean it's a good circle. It could be the wrong circle. So being surrounded by good people is very, very important. Like, I strongly believe in that. I'm actually surprised that coaches and other, practitioners don't talk about it, either because they're not aware of it or because they're keeping a secret. I want people to know. But to me, that's a big piece of the equation, is just being around the right people. My moments in my life where I made most progress, I was surrounded by really good people. Every time I surrounded myself with the wrong people, it was just a waste of my time. Like, it was just dead, no progress. It's hard to explain, but maybe it's something that made more sense to me. But in my life, everything was always making progress faster when I was surrounded by the right people. Okay? I have trouble being aggressive while rolling and sparring. What's a good way to bring out that inner dragon so I can do better while sparring? It's a very good question, Kip. You just got to train it. Like, I always say this, aggression is technique. And people think I'm crazy when I say this, but it is a technique because you improve on it. Everything is technique. Aggression is technique. Timing is technique. Strength is technique because you have to learn how to use it intelligently. So the same thing with speed and flexibility. These things are all things you improve on. There's skill to it. You ever seen that guy that weighs 300 pounds and is light? And then you ever roll the guy that weighs like 120 pounds and he's super heavy? How do you explain that? You put him on the scale. When it's 300, the other one's 120. But the guy with 120 feels heavier. How do you explain that? Technique. There's no other way you can explain it. All right? Physically, you can't explain that. You explain it through technique, learning how to use your weight. Just because you're heavy doesn't mean you know how to use your weight. It's the same thing with being fast. Just because you're light, it doesn't mean you're going to move with speed. All right? We're going to move with precision. So that's, aggression is the same. I think that the myth is that you will be aggressive when you compete. And that is exactly that, a myth. You're going to be aggressive when you train aggressively. You have to get used to that. So aggression is a habit. It's something that you're always doing, right? It's difficult because not everyone in the gym has the maturity to train like that. A lot of people in the gym, they go, oh, you're going too hard. I don't want to roll with you anymore. And I've always made an effort to be very aggressive, but also to be very careful with my training partners. Like, I can go hard and not hurt them. The problem is, like, a lot of people don't want that sort of pace. Like, they want an easy pace. They want a very relaxed kind of pace where, it's more of a sort of fun kind of rolling. And I understand that. I totally get that. I don't judge people. I think that a lot of people come to roll for those reasons. And these days, that's sort of how I roll. I'm not rolling competitively like I used to. It's a different kind of feel to jiu-jitsu, and there's nothing wrong with it. But for those of you who want to compete, you want those wars. Like, the war is a big part of, making progress. All right, guys, we're approaching the end here. We got time for one more question. Not sure what happened to the Instagram feed there, but okay, Alex, is your academy opening this month? If so, what changes will you be making? I don't know what changes we can make. We do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's the opposite of social distancing. So I don't know what people are talking about making phase 1, phase 2. People are talking, I don't even know what they're talking about. Maybe that applies to everyone else. It doesn't apply to us. I plan on opening my gym May 18th. I think May 15th is the day where, like, small businesses are going to go back to work. So that's a Friday, I believe. So I'm just going to open it on Monday, okay, May 18th, and we're going to get back to work. Unless the governor says something that we can't open, or going to, shut me down if that's the case. But I plan on being back in business May the 18th, and I'm hearing the same from a lot of other business owners. I think we just move forward. I think that's the best we can do right now, and hope for the better. Just try to stay healthy and clean and strong immune system, and there's not much else we can do, guys. Okay, I think this virus is here to stay. I think it's going to be like the flu. It's just not going anywhere. It's something we deal with once a year or throughout the year, whatever the case. It is what it is. All right. Okay, team. I know some of you guys still got questions. All right. We hit our 30-minute mark. I would love to see you guys again. It is Wednesday, right? Yeah, Wednesday. So on Thursday, tomorrow, 5 p.m., we're doing this one more time. I'll be here if you guys are here. All right. Love you guys. Stay healthy out there, and I'll see you guys mañana. Ciao.